The defense is finally going to get a chance to start their closing arguments, and Joe Tacopina, y'all know, Joe Tacopina does not play around. So let's see what he's talking about here.
Mr. Tacopina, are you ready to
Yes, sir.
Mr. Barrett?
Yes, sir.
Floor is yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The defendant, Rakim Mayers, now has and is afforded an opportunity to argue the case, if you will. I'm not going to argue to you, ladies and gentlemen. What I'm going to do is try and discuss reasonable inferences that we believe can be drawn from the evidence. What I'm going to do is something a little different. I'm going to cede the floor to the transcripts in this case, the testimony. So it's not in dispute, what I'm going to say. Ultimately, what will determine the facts and what's going to be important is you. And we can all live with that. You're empowered to do justice here. This is the great system of ours that works. And I'd like to, first and foremost, I'd like to commend and compliment Mr. Preslomit on what I thought was a fine argument between him. I don't agree with much of anything he had to say, but I did listen intently, and I hope you'll do the same with me. There's a few things on what he said, though, I do have to just address immediately. And during his argument, because I didn't object doesn't mean I agreed. I didn't object once. I thought there were some misstatements of facts. I'll deal with that. But I'm not afraid of anything that was said or anything he had to say. I didn't want to interrupt him. I didn't want to object. I wanted you to hear whatever the arguments are. Let's see if they give me that same courtesy. He did, during his 2+ hour first summation, because they had 2 summations, you'll hear about that later. He didn't once mention the fact that their only witness in this case committed perjury again and again and again and again in this court. That wasn't mentioned once. Not even dealt with.
Coming out swinging.
That's an important issue in this case, as you're going to see, because the case does rise and fall in credibility, without question. Without question. Detective Flores, their case detective, testified, and we'll put up this testimony in a bit.
He said really was
That without really, the 2 videos and the sounds, there's no evidence of a shooting. Could be, could not be. That's certainly not proof beyond reasonable doubt. So Relly's testimony is in fact everything. And Mr. Preslomit seemed very worried about what I'm going to say about Mr. Efron and his credibility. He understands that the case rises and falls with him. And he spent a lot of time anticipating what I'm going to say about it. One thing he said I would do, but I promise you I won't, is I'm not going to go through every inconsistency of Mr. Efron. We'd be here until Christmas. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go through the major lies he told, the admissions of perjury,
Joe is tripping.
the important facts
That's
that
amazing.
he told you that turned out to be lies. I'm not going to worry about some inconsistency he told about some statement he made 2 years ago or 3 years ago. We would be here literally for days on end, and I'm not going to do that. Mr. Preslomit said there's no evidence of a profit in this case. Again, we'll get to all this. There's definitely a lot less evidence of a real gun in this case than a profit. The facts scream out that it's impossible for what he had that night to be a real gun. The DA spent much of that argument, 2 hours and 15 minutes or so, repeating himself, repeating the same arguments again and again, sometimes in sarcastic tone, because the evidence isn't there. Look, together, hopefully, these discussions that we're going to have, we're going to be helpful in trying to arrive at a decision in this case, where you don't compromise, where you don't do violence to your conscience, where you do the right thing. And you're the ones who are empowered to determine what, in fact, is the right thing. It's you. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever in your life been falsely accused of it? Ever been falsely accused of it? Have you ever to sit there and take watch proceedings or watch how it played out and wait and wait and wait, knowing that you're innocent, knowing that you didn't do it? All you can do during such a process is maintain your dignity. Isn't that right? All you can do is maintain your dignity. Knowing that you're innocent, but maintaining your dignity and remembering always that you're left in a crisis is your conduct during it. That's another reason why I'm so proud to represent Rakim. Rocky. He's a man who's maintained his innocence from day one, 3.5+ years ago, who's conducted himself with dignity throughout these proceedings from day one. I started off telling you about this case was all about my personal lines out of the back in the opening statement, it seems like a year and a half ago, was that this case was about Relly's jealousy, lies, and greed. I said that you'd see the kind of person he was in this courtroom, an angry pathological liar. That he, and he alone, is the source of all the evidence that they are relying on. And this case would rise and fall on his credibility. You take him out of the picture, there is no case. And as I promised, Relly showed you who he truly was when it came time for cross-examination. He's a man who told me without hesitation, I can tell people whatever I want. He said that, actually, to you. I was right out of the box, the first one that fine, please.
It's not working. The sound's not working.
You want the audio visual, please? Alex, come on, please. Right here.
I'm gonna, where I want
That's fine.
Yeah.
We have an audio visual person in the court. We'll have him come up. Go ahead.
to.
Sure.
Okay. What you would have heard, what you may see one day, hopefully after Mark comes up to save us once again, is him literally saying to you, I can tell people whatever I want. He's their witness, who you're being asked to believe beyond a reasonable doubt. I can tell people whatever I want. He's a man who literally gave 4 different answers to one question. 4 answers, 1 question. He said, yes, no, I don't recall, I don't know, in 1 question.
It's true.
That was the first for me. Been doing this for a bit. That was the first for me. 4 answers, 1 question. Yes, no, I don't recall. I don't know. He's a man who committed perjury before your eyes over and over again. A man who snapped, cursed, threw a water bottle while he was testifying, cursed in this courtroom. Threw a water bottle out of anger while testifying in the light of court with the judge, with the jury, with these terrific
He threw a water bottle?
sheriff's deputies and bailiffs.
Dang.
That's what that here. Imagine what he's
What are you
capable
doing,
of in the dark of night. He doesn't think anyone's watching. The evidence in this case has shown you that this case indeed rises on his credibility or falls on his credibility, and it is falling hard. Before we start, I do want to thank you all. It's right to thank you all for your commitment and sacrifice in this case. It's not been an easy case. It's been a long, long case. It's been odd that not one of you have ever been late. I've been another first for me. Been doing this for a while, both as a prosecutor and defense attorney. Not once have we been waiting for a juror. So your commitment and your sacrifice is extraordinary, especially in a 4-week trial. So we both sides thank you for that. I know that. But this is what this is about. This is why we love what we do. It's why I love what I do. It's an opportunity to come before people who are from the community, who are the conscience of the community, because you are the conscience of this community. And when I say community, I mean you represent the community of Los Angeles. Every part of the community, parts that are represented here, and parts that aren't represented here, Compton, Englewood. You represent all parts of this community. You set the standards, you tell us what's right and what's wrong with your verdict. Use your common sense to do that. And ladies and gentlemen, your verdict goes far beyond these courtroom doors.
Really in the courtroom throwing
Evidence
bottles?
isn't there in this case. It's not even close. Again, appreciate Mr. Bresloni's argument, but we're going to dissect the evidence now. Apart from Relly's testimony, the prosecution, just his testimony, I'm not talking about his physical evidence, he said, apart from his testimony, the prosecution's evidence consists of videos, shell casings, and knuckle scrapes. And I don't know what else to call them but knuckle scrapes. I know they said, oh, he's going to call them knuckle scrapes. What am I going to call them? Bullet wounds? I mean, they're knuckle scrapes. Videos don't prove that case, they prove the opposite. Relly was the aggressor in both videos, and we'll show you those, and we'll show you them slowly. The shell casing is not. Sorry.
Mark says it's set up right, but he needs to.
Yeah, I'll stop for a second. You want to try it? Let's try it. Thanks.
Go ahead. You need back here or over here? Yeah, right.
So they're gonna show the video of Relly wilding out.
Thank you. You want to hang around for a little bit, or? I know, right? Stick around. Okay.
Don't go far.
Thank you very much.
Shout out to IT.
Lennon, he was one of the videos. Michael played that. Go ahead.
Yes, no, they want to drink. I don't know. Since so long, I can tell people what about it. I don't get it, but no. Yes, no, they want to drink. I don't know. Since so long, I can tell people what about it.
Okay. I think we already discussed it. I'm not going back to it, but that was. You could take that down, please. Anyway, the shell casings and the knuckle scrapes mean absolutely nothing without believing Relly's story about them. They mean nothing without believing his story in whole about them. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how the evidence or lack of evidence is shaped up in this case. Before we do, I want to make clear what Rocky is charged with. He's charged with 2 counts of assault with a semi-automatic weapon. One for the altercation by the parking garage on Argyle Avenue. The other for the altercation in Piece Del Mar, that fuzzy video that we've seen. The DA said you only have to decide if it's proper or not. That's it. That's all you have to decide. Very simple.
Nope.
Nothing else is in dispute. That is not true. That's not true. And the judge
Not true
told
at all.
us just the other day. He said, as a matter of fact, that's not what you just have to decide. It completely ignores the self-defense and defense of others law that the judge instructed you on. But they see what they want to see. They say what they want to say. They hide from you what they don't want you to see. Which is why they cut off the end of the video on Piece Del Mar. And we're going to show you what they cut off. They cut off after Rocky's gone. After 12 is already running away.
Here we go.
They cut off the part where Relly goes back and gets Ills one more time. The guy who's only using for a human shield. They cut that part of the video off. We did. We'll show you. The judge will instruct you. Each of those charges requires the prosecution to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Another term I didn't hear much in the 2 hours plus explanation of this result.
We talked about that
Beyond a reasonable
yesterday.
doubt that Rocky possessed a real operable semi-automatic firearm and that Rocky did not act in self-defense or defense of another. Beyond a reasonable doubt. And the evidence just isn't there. It's not even close in this case, guys. It's not even close. I'm here to gain respect for the undeniable fact that even now as we sit here, Rocky Mayers is presumed innocent. He's presumed innocent as we sit here now. I'm here to point out the numerous reasonable doubts that lurk in the evidence in this case. Because folks, please remember, the judge will tell you, he did already have some charges. All you need is one. All you need is one. I submit to you, there are hundreds of reasonable doubts in this. Hundreds. You just need one. And the case is over. We have this idea of a reasonable doubt. It's not what we do in our daily lives on the street when we talk to our friends or analyzing whether our kids have been truthful or our friends have been truthful. But it's something that's really important in this setting, the courtroom. Because it seems, as a country, that it has served us very, very well. The people who founded this country, who are no strangers to controversy, and certainly no strangers to social danger, have created some of it themselves even. They knew that the surest and best way to guarantee the liberty of citizens was to make sure that if the government brought charges against one of its citizens, they had to prove. And if there was a doubt based on reason, there was a reasonable doubt, there had to be an acquittal. Had to be. What a reasonable doubt isn't, the judge said this to you in the beginning, like, again, 4 weeks ago, whenever that was. What a reasonable doubt isn't, it isn't he may have committed the crime. It isn't he probably committed the crime. It is I'm almost certain he committed the crime. That doesn't carry it. It's I have no reason to doubt he committed the crime. What was proven beyond a reasonable doubt in this case Terrell Efron is a compulsive liar and perjurer. That was proven beyond reasonable doubt. He realized without remorse. Folks, he even bragged to you about committing perjury. He literally did. And you're going to see it. As long as Mark is close by, the video where you're going to see him literally bragging about committing perjury to you. You know, this reasonable doubt, proof beyond reasonable doubt, you're going to hear me talk about it again. But the prosecution told you just now, Mr. Versolman said, that the defense's story is impossible. They have to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. They can't just say it. They have to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt. They have not met their burden here, not even close, because they can't. It's a very heavy burden, and they've not come close. That's why they resort to making excuses, playing games, relying on possibilities, which is really funny, because you were all here for jury selection, because you wouldn't be here if you weren't here for jury selection. See how smart I am? You were all here when Mr. Lewin in jury selection said, we'll never ask you to look at what's possible in this case. Remember that was like the closing remark in jury selection? We'll never ask you to look at what's possible. Yet, as we walk through the evidence together, you'll see all the possibilities they presented. Starting with that first witness out of the gate. Right after jury selection, boom! First witness, Zizzo, right out of the gate. Is it possible you missed the shell casings? You have to say, you never say anything about the word possible. You won't be asked what's possible in this case. First witness out of the box, Officer Zizzo, was asked, is it possible you missed the shell casings? Possible is not proof beyond reasonable doubt, nor are excuses. Why were there no fingerprints on those shell casings that really claimed to have found that night?
Why didn't the police
Remember
find them?
what Flora said about that? Excuses. Well, you know, if it rained, if there was water, if there were cars, if there was wind. We'll go back to that. We'll review the evidence together, and you'll see that their excuses for not having proof really start stacking up. And in face of only possibilities and excuses, they resorted to playing games in an effort to win at all costs. And it's not about justice. It was about winning. Plain and simple.
That's
And they played games in this case that should offend you. I'm not just saying it. I'm going to take you through. Not showing you evidence, embracing perjury of this relic, trying to deceive you. Remember something I said to you in the opening. I said we're here to make promises both sides, but not like politicians' promises. You know, the thing where we promise you the moon, you vote based on our promises, and you see if we fulfill them. Here, we make promises in that open statement. You get to see if we fulfill them, then you vote. Let's see what they promised compared to what we promised. They told you Rocky was the aggressor. His text messages show he was the aggressor. The guy deleted text messages, we'll get to that. They told you that Rocky shot Relly with a real gun. We told you that Relly was manufacturing the story, deleting and destroying evidence. He was trying to extort Rocky, which came through. That Relly was the real aggressor. Rocky used the prop gun to defend himself. There are two hurdles that they have to overcome to get a conviction in this case. Two hurdles. They cannot overcome them. One is that an object in Rocky's hand on November 6, 2021 was not a prop gun. Beyond the reasonable doubt. Second is that Rocky did not act in self-defense for 12 year olds. The judge instructed you, if the prosecution failed to prove the object in Rocky's hand was not a prop gun beyond a reasonable doubt, the case is over. It's over. Beyond a reasonable doubt. You can stop there. It's over. The judge also told me that regardless of what Rocky had in his hand, if you find that he acted in self-defense or in defense of 12 year olds, he's also not guilty. That's the law. It's not our argument.
It's the law. He's right.
They had the heavy, heavy burden of disproving self-defense or defense of another beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's a burden that they cannot carry in this case, not even close. Relly threatened Rocky, Relly threatened Schwelby, Relly repeatedly punched Gills and ragdolled Gills. I'm going to show you that again on the video, slowly. You had it narrated to you, but you can see it on video. Before we do that and talk about it, let's discuss why they can't overcome that first hurdle. First, beyond a reasonable doubt, that the object in Rocky's hand was real, was not a firearm, because they cannot, absolutely cannot overcome that. There is incontrovertible evidence and testimony in this case, and other evidence that shows you the object that Rocky was possessing was a rock. Unimpeached. Not a real firearm. And they asked why. First of all, remember, there's no evidence in the record that Rocky was licensed to carry in 2021. He wasn't. But Twelve and Lou told you it wasn't a real gun. Two people came in here, took an oath, and told you it was not a real gun. Lou Levin told you where it came from. That DMV music video, he identified it with Rocky and Rihanna from July 2021, right before. He told you he put a clip drawer on it, essentially a belt clip, to clip the piece onto a belt to make it easy to carry. And he extended the magazine with a clear magazine to make it look more intimidating because the Glock he had prop gun Glock with 26 sword fits in a pocket that was really small. So this was meant as a deterrent. Mr. Sloman told you that Lou Levin couldn't name the security guy who advised Rocky to carry a prop gun. He was never asked. And he didn't say security guy, he said Rocky's security team. Testimony you could, by the way, you could always have the testimony read back to you at any point. If there's any dispute, I know you guys can take crazy things, but if there's any dispute, you always say, we have that part read back of the testimony where Mr. Levin talked about the security people who advised Rocky, or whatever, type of that. So he never was asked who, but he didn't say a security guy. He said a security team, and he just said he concurred. He wasn't pretending to be a security advisor that they mocked him. They didn't ask him that, yet they just tried to argue that to you. Mr. Levin also told you that the prop gun didn't serve its intended purpose on November 6th, obviously, 2021. And Rocky gave it back to him, and he gave it back to this co-director from the DMV video when he went to New York next. And he remembered it was December, January, whatever. By the way, we didn't bring in a picture of the video? They're the ones with the burden of proof here, folks. They have the burden. The DMV videos were all to see. It's out there. They could have, if they wanted to, subpoenaed it. They could have burned it in. It was on YouTube. They didn't do it. They didn't want you to see that video.
Yep. That's a great point.
Lou Levin told you he asked the co-director, this guy Haji, where the prop gun went. He did call him back after 5 months later when Rocky was eventually charged and then sued. And Haji, this prop gun guy, the director, co-director, said he didn't know that. He explained he had a studio, a big studio in common with other directors of these videos and films and whatnot. And he said it was a common space that had cameras, lighting equipment, prop equipment, and everything else that was borrowed and exchanged and whatnot between a bunch of people. That's uncontroverted testimony. And it was gone. The guy Haji couldn't find it. Don't think Lou didn't try. He did. The guy Haji said it was gone. And you heard the DAs, they told you, they told Lou, they spoke to Haji. They recorded it, they told you. And you know, if Haji said anything inconsistent with what Lou said, you're going to hear that tape.
Your Honor, we found out about it that day. It's improper.
There are no speaking objections. There are no speaking objections. I've told you that. You will have an opportunity in your rebuttal argument.
Objection, improper argument.
Overruled.
This man just, Your Honor, he just started talking in the middle. He just started talking in the middle of the defense's closing arguments. Wow. What? He should have been held in contempt for that. That's just straight up wrong. Look at Joe.
Speaking objections. There are no speaking objections. I've told you that. You will have an opportunity in your rebuttal argument.
Objection, improper argument.
Get a load of this guy.
Overruled.
He says it loudly, it's going to get sustained.
Objection, improper
Sustained.
argument.
That is sustained. Don't do that, Mr. Hanfield.
Anyway, you were heard. You know, they knew about Lou Levin prosecution before this trial started. They knew before this trial started, he said that the prop gun came from a music video that could have looked like, and they could have also, they could have looked at prop houses, the music video, whatever else. They could have done it too. But they didn't say, oh, we didn't do it. Again, we have absolutely no burden to do anything. We did provide live witness testimony. We cross-examined.
Anyway.
It wasn't a surprise to them. They didn't want to leave people, they knew what they were going to find. That's why you didn't hear anything.
That's improper argument. Overruled.
Relly's words and actions on November 6, 2021 show you it wasn't the real gun. His words and actions show you. All the prosecution's objective evidence in this case, everything that doesn't come from Relly shows you this was not a real gun. Common sense also shows you it was not a real gun. On that last
Does
point,
it? Let me know what y'all think.
the prosecution would have you believe that Rocky, you saw that video, shot a real gun at his friend Ills, who was right there. I mean, Ills was right there. According to them, he shot the gun, a real gun, at his friend Ills. That makes no sense. You saw the video. The second shot, Ills was right there. And there's no way, even if that was a real gun, that Ills wasn't getting dead. That was real. There was no way. DA then said, well, you know, why? Why would he get rid of the prop gun? He said, we haven't explained that. I think we did. I think Lou Levin explained that pretty well, and pretty clearly. Remember, they didn't know 5 months later the police would come. They weren't thinking, oh, we better save this in case, I don't know, next year at some point I get arrested. That was the furthest thing from Rocky's mind. They did know that it did not serve its intended purpose. They did know that. So that was the end of that. Rocky got rid of that prop gun that didn't work and instead beefed up his security. So now he had to have security all the time instead of just going to events, even when he was his friends on the street. Of course, he didn't know the police were going to be involved 5 months later. As for Twelby and Lou Levin, you heard from each of them. And before we get into what they said, let's talk about the process. It's supposed to be about the search for the truth. That's what it's meant to be. It's not supposed to be about just trying to win. That's what it's not supposed to be about. Especially when you have the power of law enforcement government behind you. You know, it's the prosecutor's job to make sure that innocent people go free also. And it makes sense that all the witnesses come to your attention. All the witnesses come to your attention, as we had to do in this case. You can see that responsible citizens came in here as witnesses were often treated roughly and ridiculed, attacked by Mr. Lewin, an obsession to win. You don't treat witnesses who came in here, don't get paid to tell the truth, have no financial motive, you don't treat them like that, just purely and simply because they're not saying what you want them to say in your version of what the truth might be. You don't do that. Mark Twain very often once said, to a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. That came to life.
Shout out to Mark Twain.
Prosecution embraced Relly.
That's a good quote.
Embraced him. He didn't even once mention to you all, okay, he perjured himself before you guys many times.
Nope.
Whole thing's fake, that weren't fake. He lied to your faces. That wasn't even mentioned this morning.
We gotta take a minute for that one. We talked about this yesterday. They didn't even mention that they impeached their own witness, that they, by playing the cell phones in their closing arguments, admitted that their witness lied on the stand.
These niggas lacking.
Come on, man. I don't know what they're doing, but this is rough. You can't ignore
They
that.
defend him despite his despicable acts and his despicable conduct.
You
With
can't
all
ignore that.
witnesses, Mr. Lewin carried it to them like they were serial killers. And I mean Twelby and Lou Levin. They were the polar opposites of Relly in every way. How they conducted themselves, how they answered questions. They weren't argumentative.
Yes.
They weren't disrespectful.
Yes.
They were compliant and they were responsive to both sides. To both sides.
They don't have
Compare
30
those
M's on the
movies to what
line.
you saw the week before that. They weren't belligerent. They didn't throw water bottles. They didn't curse. I mean, Relly, who couldn't answer any question straight, admitted to lying, and when he didn't admit to lying, got impeached with prior inconsistent statements. I'm not going to go through them all. You know, when you know the truth and when you tell the truth, you don't have to rehearse the truth. You don't have to get your memory refreshed. You don't have to be reminded of the truth when you know the truth and tell the truth. You don't have to be coached on the truth by the prosecutors. You don't have to have someone telling you how to answer questions like Relly was told in this case. You always get the truth right. Let me tell you. All witnesses answered every question without incident, without problem. They were consistent. They didn't get tripped up once. There was not one inconsistency. So the response to that is, oh, they didn't coach very well. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, I guess. Because if they had been caught up and tripped up and been inconsistent, and their truth was inconsistent, well then they're liars. Or they weren't consistent. But because they were so consistent and they didn't get impatient, they couldn't lay glove on them. Oh, they must have been coached.